Welcome to this talk. So, what can you expect? During the last year and a half, we set up a knowledge system in our research group. And although our use case may differ greatly from most other participants here, I think there's a great deal of interesting content. For example, I regularly see questions on how do you set up Confluence spaces or a Confluence environment on Slack for knowledge sharing. Um, that might be interesting. I think it also might show that doing this well takes a very long breath. I called this an adventure. I'm not going to tell you how you should do it, how you should update your knowledge system, but I'm going to share our experience. And I think it truly was and still is an adventure. Just like Moby Dick or Robinson Crusoe, sometimes life seems good, sometimes we had adversities, but unlike those stories, we are still busy with our adventure and we're still traveling and exploring. So please enjoy the ride. So let me introduce myself first. I'm Victor Sluiter. I'm an electrical engineer. I've worked in companies and at universities, and I've always been drawn to the side job of organizing workflows. I'm not a tech writer, but I do not resent documentation, which is something the stereotype engineer does. And actually, I'm not quite sure whether that stereotype is correct. The talk I'm giving is how I reflect to our process of making a knowledge system, which also was a side job. Views from other angles within our organization might differ, so this is my view on the process. I'm going to tell you first about the group I'm working for, because that's quite important for the way we work. After that, I'll take you with me on the adventure. Saxion is a university of applied sciences comparable to the German Fachhochschule or college in the United States of America. There's a wide range of educational teams educating students in bachelor degrees, and this goes from management and technical education to health and well-being study programs. Besides the education that most people think of first with the University of Applied Sciences, we also have a support organization dealing with centralized purchase, and amongst which software licenses and IT support. The research groups work on applied research. Mostly this is trying to get results from fundamental research towards usage in companies. Within Saxion, we have many of these research groups, and I'm a research engineer in one of those research groups, which is the Mechatronics Research Group. So let's take a small look how we work. Within our group, there are at this moment 2 professors, 3 people support staff, and some researchers. So that's 10 to 15 researchers, a bit depending on the projects we have. And these researchers come from a variety of backgrounds. So there are mechanical engineers, there are mathematicians, there are IT people, there are remote control engineers, all kinds of stuff. And we have, very important, project leaders and project support. And project support takes care that all the stuff we do gets organized in the right way, because we also need to get our research funding, and it's very important to get all our stuff together for that too. Let me show you a bit of the stuff we made. So here is an example. You see a fire extinguishing robot. We did not make that, but we did make the add-on module, which is shown at the front of it with the nice Saxion logo. We made it in order for the fire brigade to be able to navigate through dense smoke. We also developed an application where collaborative robots can help in series production of a small product and take over some of the assembly steps, but still work with the human operator and in very close proximity. We're working a lot with drones. Here you see the docking station that can protect drones from the weather while simultaneously charging them. We're doing a lot of development on drone navigation algorithms, and that's mainly for agriculture, maintenance and inspection, or for emergency services. I think what's important to note here that all the things we make are one-off demonstrators. So we do not full serial production. It's just a demonstrator to show the technology. So the group is working on more projects at the same time. So in general, we have more than 20 projects running at the same time. So a lot of interesting connections there. And we see ourselves as getting projects, getting interesting assignments from companies, splitting it up in manageable pieces, and then also trying to involve as many graduating students or internship students to do part of the job, to also tie the education and the work field together. So when I was asked to start the knowledge management group, I tried to read up a bit on the subject because it's not my normal expertise. One of the interesting concepts I found that you can see knowledge as the stuff in your head, which leaves the building at 5 p.m., and information as the stuff that stays in the building as either physical or digital objects. So what we try to do is to make the transfer of knowledge between us and our partners efficient through information. So we have stuff in our brains, our partners have stuff in their brains, and we want to use information to exchange this if we cannot do it in person. So as you can see, on one side, companies who have information and knowledge, we as a research group in the center, of course, and then education at the other side that also has knowledge and education. So these are both the students, but also the teachers. And we want to exchange information. Now, one thing to really be careful with, some companies do not want this information exchange between the companies, so they do not want to have this happening. So we have to be very careful with that, the IP rights. But then the problem is we had a lot of storage solutions. So we had a cloud storage provider, we had GitHub, Confluence, Slack, Teams, other drives. People had stuff on their own laptops. So if I want to turn my knowledge into information, where do I put it? There were accounts that nobody could access if you didn't know the password, which is very good for IP protection, but very bad for sharing knowledge internally. So we were always questioning, where should I store this document? Is what I'm making important enough to share? Or on the other side, hey, where would this information be? Did anyone store log files for this experiment of last month? Or where are the files for this project that I have to take over? So it was quite unstructured. So we tried finding a new way. So trying to find a new way to store our information. And of course, as good engineers, we started off with requirements. So on the left side, you can see like a requirements scribble I made on what we wanted to have. So we wanted to have good rights management. We want to have concurrent editing in documents, a clear workflow, clear costs, be able to work with local files, for example, for video, and large log files of our robots. And we wanted to have all kinds of stuff. So blogs, knowledge base, Word document, versioned files, anyways. So we looked at all kinds of projects. So SharePoint would be an option because of the university maintained it, but because of security concerns, SharePoint was not open to external partners, so we could not use it. There was a new cloud storage facility by Saxion University, Saxion and other universities, but that was still heavily under construction. But it did have backups, which our standard cloud storage provider did not have. We already used Confluence, and we saw it as a very good solution to have a easy onboarding of people and easy usage with the WYSIWYG editor. So we could also involve our project support people who are not really technical, and the possibility of add-ons. And management was okay with the costs. The only bad thing is that we could not really work with Word documents easily, like collaborative editing in Word. So in the end, we chose for Confluence with the new Saxion storage for large files. So this was September 2019, and we thought, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to integrate it. We're just going to use it. We're going to test drive on a small project, gather some feedback, and then get together some kind of standard process. But what happened in January 2020? We decided to go lean, which is the Saxion default policy. So instead of just go forward and implement something, we really had to think, what problem are we facing? So one of the standard ways of doing this in the lean paradigm is to do a fishbone diagram, and on the one end you put the problem. So our problem was too little knowledge is transferred internally and externally at this moment. And then we looked at causes for these problems. For example, no peer review culture. It's unclear what the interests and tasks of your colleagues are. No education on internal tooling. What is actually our goal? There's no check by authority, so you can do whatever you want. Quick wins, like demos, are prioritized over documentation. The tooling limits knowledge transfer, or there's no standard way of work. We did this with a group of project leaders, engineers, and management, the professors, to check what, to get as broad as possible a group of people together. So the next step of doing lean stuff is using the 5 times why. So why does this happen? Why does that happen? Why does this happen? So why don't we use a standard workflow? We actually kind of had a standard workflow, but nobody was using it, so it was not standard. So why was that? Because the standard model that we had did actually not really fit our project dynamics. And then nobody was rewarding or punishing if you did use the standard thing that nobody used. And why was that? That was because, according to management, the fee model documents that we made, requirements documents, technical design documents, test documents, actually did not contribute to knowledge transfer. So that raised the question, what knowledge products do we want to share? This led us to the knowledge products. So we really thought, what is the good stuff to share? What do we think is really important to share knowledge? Again, we asked a lot of people, like our whole group, what knowledge, a question, and gathered the input. And we asked, what knowledge products are important for internal and external knowledge sharing in order to improve knowledge development? And everybody presented their ideas, and then we scored. So we just put a lot of post-its on a whiteboard, and people presented what they thought, and we scored. Just everybody could make 3 or 4 ticks on a paper. So the highest 12 were the official ones, and we made those smart. So we like specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and then actually the T thing we didn't do so much with the time. So in a smaller team, we discussed what the definition was of each knowledge product, and then after that we presented it to the complete research team. So, for example, products that we thought were really important were proof of principles for physical demonstrators, so the real stuff. A white paper on technology, also very important. And of course, code repositories, the live demos themselves, logbooks kept during the exploration of technology, also knowledge products, just as training materials, scientific contributions, or even reports of visits to a professional congress, such as this one. In this phase, we got a lot of complaints from colleagues who just wanted to get a system with some new folder structure and not a definition of knowledge products or think about how to create them. It was tense sometimes, and we really had to make it clear that we were going forward slowly in order to get something fully useful instead of partly useful and just have the next system that nobody would use. So then we went into implementation modes. For every knowledge product, we set up where to store it. So which storage system, which folder, under what structure in the projects, and we made the smart description. So when is it finished. And one of the things we took into account is that knowledge sharing also happens when you let others outside your product review what you've made. So if you define something to be finished when someone from a different project has looked at it, there's already knowledge sharing taking place. Some knowledge products were combinations of other knowledge products. For example, for a demo, you actually need the setup, which is a knowledge product, with code, which is a knowledge product, and the user manual, which is a knowledge product. So we roughly estimated that every 300 man-hours in a project would generate one knowledge product. Something we did not look into yet was how to deal with knowledge that did not belong to a specific project. So we were really looking at stuff that would be output from our project. Here's an example of one of our definitions. So a contribution to an open source package was something that was never counted as a deliverable before, but we think it's really important to tie us to the community of developers and to show our involvement in making better code and making a better world even. So how do we measure this? So we think we succeeded when our code has been accepted in a pull request. So that's the M of the SMART definition. Also, you see here that we define like issues are stored in Jira. Libraries are stored there, and in Bitbucket we put all the code. Other knowledge products have other storage categories such as Confluence locations or cloud file storage locations. We also looked at the organizational part. So this is March 2020. How do we plan these knowledge products in a project? We have projects of various sizes, from very small one-person projects to many people, multiple years. And who's responsible for reviewing those knowledge products? We even defined that every finished knowledge product would be mentioned in a weekly group meeting, so everybody would know what was generated and create awareness of the knowledge that's available for people to check. With that, we had everything it took ready. To my surprise, the management team agreed fully with our plan, even though it would take quite some time to maintain it and incorporate it. In the summer of 2020, we migrated all the code we had to Bitbucket. We made all spaces for all projects looking the same, categorized the same categories in the spaces, and made sure that all pages in Confluence that refer to storage locations were both internally in the page, but also externally to other pages consistent. That actually took up quite some more time than I had in mind. We set up a procedure to let every new project get the basic structure in Confluence and started really standardizing to get a consistent view for every project. Another thing we looked into was how to deal with rights. So as we deal with students in many matters, with our own employees, and we deal with external companies, we made a page that has all the procedures to create accounts or give people rights or show that they have no access for certain areas of our projects. So this felt really solid and good. We gave presentations to our other research groups how we did it, and we also talked a lot and gave presentations to information management groups within Saxion. However, we were running into an abyss, or so it seemed. After everything was approved, everything set up and ready, nothing happened. The knowledge management group was dissolved because we did what we were set out to do, which is to define the knowledge products. The structure we created with lots of consensus from everyone was kept up, but no serious action was taken to plan new knowledge products. Our project was over, but no knowledge products were created the way we intended. We were quite sorry for this. But yet, from the deep point of our structure, we started making smaller knowledge products. So you can see here the small brain plants coming up. They were not as good or as shiny as we intended, but the new structure, which we made as a team, like how our stuff was set up, was recognized and kept up. The core members of the research group or of the knowledge management group kept the ideas alive, And often we're asked, hey, we've got this thing which is interesting for our group, so where should we store it? As a very important side effect of what we did, we created a structure, a framework on where our stuff needed to go. And that structure was documented and consistent between projects. To get back to the beginning, the exchange between knowledge and information was much, much clearer. So one of the best ways to engage people in using this line of thought we had about how and where to store things was to give a demonstration how we use the knowledge products and the default Confluence and file structure in one of our pilot projects. That demonstration really got a lot of feedback, and people started appreciating what was there and started to track how they could use it in their projects too. In fact, it was seen that the structure we had created was good. So when KPIs were needed for the organizational reports, renewed interest arose for the knowledge product. So when people in our group left after a short contract and actually little knowledge was available from what they had done, the value of creating one knowledge product per 300 hours was seen by management. So we got renewed interest and renewed collaboration. So we're still not there where we hoped to be when we started, but the restructured Confluence spaces have really helped us to make it easier to migrate between projects for all employees. Recently, it was decided that projects actually should use the knowledge products we defined as promised deliverables already when writing the project proposals that give us our funding. And I think this is really great. Another thing, now we're using it, even though not according to the full standards that we set ourselves, we also see what we have missed. For instance, where do we store things that are spanning multiple projects? Like knowledge about navigation algorithms spans multiple projects, even ground and aerial robotics, which are kind of two different groups. But where do we store this general knowledge? It's still something we have to deal with. One of the secure file storage systems is completely horrible when looking at rights management. So now we have a system which is very bad with backups. We have a system which is very bad with right management. And because of COVID, our organization actually decided to open up SharePoint within limits to the external world. So maybe soon we have 3 new standards for storing files, and we actually have to do something with that. So although the knowledge products did not work out as intended, we really now have a great setup for projects in Confluence now. With right management and structure of our information being defined, we can now more easily retrieve information on our own projects and on projects of others. We really have become a lot more organized than before. So this is not necessarily about knowledge products, but it's the structure that we created which really helped. And it's a side effect. We're using Confluence, and actually that has helped a lot to tie everyone together. So we now have meeting notes, we have scroll documents, we describe workflows, for example, of project acquisition. A Git-based workflow would have kept the engineers really happy, but also on an island of their own. So I think this is something where we're quite happy with that aspect of Confluence, where it's easy to use. And another thing I think was really good in the things we did is that we kept in touch with our users, management, but also IT support and data management services from Saxion. So although I sometimes think that enlightened despotism is the best way to rule anything, in this case, getting all the consensus and getting everybody together involved a lot of people, and this also gives us greater freedom in our organization because people know what we're doing. The last point is keep the why in the back of your head. So keeping the why do we do this? Why is this important? Is really helping to make the knowledge products defined SMART, but it also helps to keep us in touch when stuff either was not working out, or even now when stuff is not working out and people are asking questions about, hey, should we share more in such and such a way? And then we can go back and think, okay, we actually tackled that in this aspect or we didn't. But it's really good to keep that in your mind. Finally, I think a big thanks to the Write the Docs community. I'm reading a lot of stuff that's coming by over there, recognizing a lot of stuff people write. I think it's a great community, and I've learned quite a lot from you. For example, that what I'm doing is maybe not knowledge management, but information architecture. Maybe, I don't know. So thanks a lot, everybody. If you want to contact me, my contact details are on these slides. Please drop me a line if you have questions, or ask them now. Thank you very much.
Yes, I see a question from Swapnil, but I think I will selfishly ask some of my own questions first.
Very good. Go ahead.
I just have a bunch of all my questions fall into the category of could you tell us more about this and that? And I'm wondering if I might have missed something, but I'm curious about any disagreements you may have had along the way. Did you encounter any resistance or disagreements with the setup?
Yes, we did. It's actually in the presentation. We we had a very tough session when we. So first, my own disagreement was when we started the lean stuff. I was like, okay, it's good. We need to do things about getting more organized. So then they decided, like, hey, these people making this new knowledge products thingy, or the knowledge management group is doing nice stuff. So let's make them lean. And I was like, oh no, I just want to go on. And during the process, I found out that it was actually a very, very good thing to do. But after I realized that, other people were really getting annoyed by the amount of delay that it caused, by looking like, okay, what do we really need to do? Like, what problems are we solving? Can't we just make a bunch of folders and let everybody use that? But then we already had that, and it was a mess. And like everybody, we told, like, okay, if we start just doing stuff now in a year, it will just be a big mess again. We have the new solution, which is a big mess. And but it really took a lot of time to get that struggle. And then the other struggle was when we finished, which is a tricky term in this case, is that I was actually really surprised when we had this meeting where everybody decided, yeah, let's go for it, let's do it. And then nothing happened. I mean, we had said, like, okay, we need to make these knowledge products. Everybody agreed. We had a lot of consensus about this, and then we needed to make them. And project management just said, like, we're so busy running our projects, we just can't also look at the knowledge products being generated. And I was like, what? We've been working on this for so long to get this going. And so that also, I had to pick some battles there.
Yeah, and just to let you know, I've muted myself because I think there's a dance school in the same building, so I'm hearing some noise from there. Hopefully it doesn't come through, but we'll see what happens. And do I remember correctly? I see in the bottom, when we revisit your slides, or when we get to watch your recording again, I think we'll notice at the bottom right-hand corner of your slides that you've noted the timeline. And you started from approximately March of last year?
I have to check myself.
What is time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's from 2019 somewhere.
2019. Okay.
Yes.
And dissolved end of 2020 or beginning of 2021.
So let's see. I'll look at my own, like, the requirements. We set those up in September 2019, and
wow.
We had the okay in December 2020. So.
Okay.
timeline. So I don't know what the question about that was, but
Well, no, that was I was wondering about the timeline. I had one more question myself about the tools that you ended up using, and you did summarize things at the end of the presentation. Because I think you used a lot of tools from Atlassian, and you mentioned perhaps developers would have been happy with some more developer-y tools like Git, but did you
correct.
consider any other tools besides the ones you used?
Yeah, we considered some tools briefly. So we looked at things like Sphinx. Also looked at integrating Sphinx into Confluence, because that's also possible. We looked at restructured text, but all those platforms actually require quite a lot of maintenance. And one of the requirements we had internally was that it should be quite low in maintenance, because the guy who was doing all the maintenance at that moment was already getting like it was already too much work. And we really would have loved to have only solutions used by Saxons or by the university, because then they would maintain it. That would be our. But then the big issue there is that their IP stuff, at least until the pandemic came, was just tie everything down. Like nobody outside our domain would be able to access anything, which is really bad for our external collaboration. We do a lot of stuff with external companies, and so yeah, we looked at some of the tools, Notion, all kinds of stuff. But I think Atlassian provided us the best possible way to also with the plugin stuff to also create documents. Like we're using scroll documents as a plugin, and that way we can also generate plugins. We can do stuff with rights management, so we can give some partners access to stuff they only need to see within that project. So that was
Makes sense.
we knew it was expensive. That was like the hurdle we had to take, but then
Convincing people of the expense and that it was worth it.
yeah, and that was actually quite easy in the end.
Cool. And just one more question from me. I thought you gave some interesting examples of what constituted a knowledge product.
Yes.
So I think you mentioned, for example, a contribution to an open source project, or perhaps
Correct.
notes from attending a conference like this one.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a bit more about other knowledge product
Yeah.
examples?
Yes, I can. So we kind of made a like upper two series, like the best knowledge products, the one you should try to get together from at least a larger project, and that will be a demonstrator, just to show some technology, to really show that it works. That's what we really see as a good way to get knowledge across, just to show that it works. Just give a good demo. And the other one is a white paper. So, for example, for a project, we wrote an article about some vision system, or how stereography works. Technical stuff for technical people. Those are like the two main ones, and then the other ones are like a software project, but then like internal. And for the internal, we have different requirements than for the external one, because the internal ones we want to be sure that it's according to Git flow, but then which is a way to work with Git.
Right.
So how do you branch? When do you branch? When do you merge stuff? All that kind of stuff, and we really want to stick to that. But for the external ones, it's up to the developing community to which you add your stuff. So there we said, okay, we don't care about whether it's Git flow, but we want to have, if it's a pull request, it counts. You know, if we did something that is actually then used by the community, and the fun part about that is that that actually more projects started looking at whether they could contribute something. So that's kind of the grassroots movement that we got going. So that's very nice.
Nice.
And for example, logbooks are a knowledge project. So when I start doing something new, I have this new sensor or this new equipment, I start working with it and I write down in a logbook what I try to do, like what is my hypothesis, how it works, what does it do, how does it work, and that's a knowledge project, because that really helps for other people trying that same stuff. Like, hey, I already wrote something. It's on Confluence, that project, you can find it, and we did some stuff with labels so you can easier find the logbooks.
Cool. Genau, as we might say in German. Exactly. Makes sense. Change logs, logbooks, release notes or whatnot. I'm filing all those in the similar bucket. And I will go ahead and ask the question that Swapnil had posted to the chat. Given especially that you find yourself among a community of technical writers and software developers, perhaps not so many researchers or people from research and development. Swapnil had asked.
We're only R&D. We are like here in this conference.
In this conference, yeah. He had asked if you thought, if you, no worries. Do you think that it might have made things faster or helped things along if you had hired an external consultant or not?
That's a very good question. Well, one of the things that I kind of find out through what we called knowledge management is actually not seen as knowledge management on Write the Docs, so it's seen as information architecture. And I think having
semantics,
semantics, but having known that would have helped in finding other solutions. And I think that having that expertise would have helped. I think having someone with the experience, like, I mean, this is autodidact, like I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Sure. You're in good company.
I'm an electrical engineer and I'm doing documentation. I mean, I think it would have helped at least to have someone who has been through this process before. I mean, the bad part about it is that we would be able to afford someone to do it that way. That's
you were saying.
So this is all side job. I mean, everything I've shown here is in like maybe 4 hours a week during this complete time. So.
Okay. Well, cool. Thank you again for a really fun presentation. I think we have about 10 minutes before our next presentation stream, but
good.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.